Well, hello, everybody. Good evening and a very happy Saturday to you all. I don't know what is going on at the moment, but it looks like my internet is being wonky. Let's see. Is that my internet as a whole? I will find out momentarily. My download speed is not great, but it's okay. How about my upload speed? Likewise, it's okay. It's not. Let's see if this helps. I don't know. I guess we'll find out, won't we? Do 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 do. Okay, it may be my router that's having issues because I just hotspotted into my phone and it seems like it's sort of fixing itself a little bit. So hopefully that is the case and we will be better off now. Let me plug in the phone because otherwise it's gonna die on me. Double your flavor, double your fun with extra sugar-free gum. All right, so it is better now. Yeah. Again, I hotspotted into my phone, so it may be I need to reset my router. Of course, then it just dropped down again, so I don't know. I'm going to piss the house. Do, do, do. I just turned off the router. And then we'll give it a couple of minutes and we'll turn it back on and try reconnecting. All right, guys. So, look at all of my water bottles. You see, guys, medicine and water bottles. That's what it's all about. Come back to me. There we go. This is why I turn off AI tracking. All right. So we should be okay now. Hopefully be good. I guess we sure find out. All right. So, we read 25 chapters last time, so a lot of things happened. Not going to dive into all of that. Basically, they chased around the world, going to multiple different continents, finding out that horses were witnesses to things. And they continue to chase the mysteries. So my recommendation, listen to the previous chapters. That'll catch you up. So if you happen to be behind on where we are, that is the best way back forward for you. Listen on in. All right, let me turn back on. The router, see if it will reconnect for me and whether that will help to fix some things. Connecting to Ethernet. All good offices are a mess, right? All right, reconnecting to the Ethernet. See if it's back on. We're still on Wi-Fi at the moment. So momentarily we will get ourselves started and we'll roll forward from there. You guys might hear that my voice is coming across a little bit differently today because I have a new microphone. I have a nice little shotgun microphone that I picked up because that's the way, I like it, that's the way, I like it, All right. See, is my Ethernet? Okay, my Ethernet is hooked back up, still connected to the phone. So let me go back over here for a second. See if we look okay. I think we look as good as we're going to get at the moment. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves started for the evening. I will have, even if this doesn't come across well for you guys, and if so, I certainly apologize for it. It is the way that it goes sometimes. The recordings I make on my side will be pristine. So you can always stop out to the YouTube channel and watch the recordings if it doesn't go well through here. So, on that note, everybody sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy. Come on, what do you mean you're having an issue? Stop having issues. Double your flavor. I don't know why that song is stuck in my head. So even if this doesn't go well for us, the recordings will go well. So sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into the final chapters of Murder at Maplewood Manor. Chapter 51. Scratched Names and the Door Behind the Wall. The next morning brought fog, not weather, but memory. Maplewood held its breath. Edwina stood in the blue parlor with a stack of old letters, freshly surfaced from beneath the floorboards. Each addressed to my dearest V. None signed, all sealed with a pressed violet petal. The ink matches the Brotherhood register entries, Sebastian said. Someone was hiding a relationship or a rebellion. Tabitha ran her hand along the baseboard. Look here, there's a groove, a hidden door. They pried gently, revealing a narrow passage. Dust clouded out, carrying perfume and a low sobbing echo. Frank lit a lantern. Louis stepped inside. Behind the wall, a sealed study, velvet draped. One desk, one diary. Lady Violet's, Lady Elizabeth whispered. She kept it here, where no one could burn it. They opened it slowly. The first page read, If they erase me, may the truth find another writer. Edwina scanned the later pages. She witnessed something, a falsified land grant. She tried to report it, and they buried her instead. A knock echoed through the walls. Not at the door, from within the study. Wellington darted into the corner, pawing at a worn tapestry. Beneath it, a portrait. Lady Violet astride a black mare, dressed in ceremonial riding cloak, the twin horse crest stitched above her heart. She was one of the first Canadian witness riders, Louis said, and they erased her. The diary ended mid-sentence. They've come for me. I hear boots on the stairs. I will not. The ink smudged violently. That night, they placed the diary, the letters, and the violet-stamped page on the parlor table. The air shifted. Candles flickered. Thunder let out a low sound. Wellington watched the mirror. Lady Elizabeth lit the final candle. You're not forgotten. Not any more. A whisper circled the room like wind down a chimney. Then ride for what I saw. The mirror uncracked itself. Tabitha blinked. She's gone. Or freed? Edwina nodded. And now we carry it. Sebastian pulled out a map. The land grant she tried to expose, it's still in use. East of Ottawa, the same symbol we've seen here before. Lewis clenched his jaw. Then it's not just a hunting, it's a trail, and we follow it. Frank tapped the diary. And this time, nobody gets buried. They packed the evidence. Wellington hopped into his saddlebag. And as dawn broke over the manor, the black mare appeared once more at the edge of the woods. Watching. Waiting. The truth had galloped through memory. Now it would ride into the light. Chapter 52. The Eastern Trail and the Papers That Refused to Burn. They left Maplewood at first light, following the trail that Lady Violet had tried to expose a century ago. The land grant in question, never publicly revoked, led to a heavily wooded parcel east of Ottawa, marked on old maps with a shape eerily similar to the Twin Horse seal. Tabitha examined satellite overlays. There's a stone foundation beneath that thicket. Old structure. No public records. Someone erased it, just like they tried to erase her, Edwina said. Lewis, riding beside Lady Elizabeth, adjusted the journal pouch strapped across Thunder's saddle. We are not just investigating, he said. We're completing what she began. They reached the site by dusk. Wildflowers and vines covered the remains of what had once been a small outpost. Frank found rusted hinges. Sebastian found parchment embedded in dry mortar. This was a registry room, he said. They logged titles here and burned the rest. But not everything had turned to ash. Wellington, tail high, darted into a hollow beneath the hearth. There, wrapped in waxed cloth and tied with hair, lay a bundle of ledgers. These are land transfers, Edwina said, flipping pages. All altered, all endorsed by a name scratched out in Lady Violet's diary. Lady Elizabeth held up a seal ring. This belonged to her contact, the one who warned her before the murder. The papers smelled of cedar and smoke, but they were intact. This is the motive, Frank said. Legacy theft, a land laundering operation disguised by heritage. A sudden gust scattered loose parchment. One sheet caught on a thorn bush. On it, the words, "Let them remember who watched." Back at their rented farmhouse, they examined the rest of the bundle. A map was folded between the final pages, drawn by Lady Violet's hand. These were the properties meant to be shared under her stewardship, Tabitha whispered. It was a plan for ethical reclamation. Witness riders were meant to oversee justice, not just memory. Edwina looked around the room. Then that role still belongs to us. Lewis touched Lady Elizabeth's shoulder. And it begins again, right here. Thunder neighed softly, pawing the ground with purpose. They would bring the map to Parliament. They would restore the stolen lands. And they would name the rider who had watched, who had warned, who had been silenced. But no more, because the truth had been buried long enough. Yeah, I don't get it. but hopefully it will get itself righted somehow along the line. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam that door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. All right, let's go ahead and just continue along for the evening with whatever it thinks it is doing tonight. And hopefully it will get itself figured out. And if not, like I said, the recordings will be available on youtube.com/@SirArminiusBy later this evening, because that is what I do. I will have it up there for you. Only you can make this world seem bright. Only you can make the darkness light. Only you and you alone can thrill me like you do. You're my dream come true, my one and only you. Okay, that's enough singing. Let's go ahead and jump into the next 5 chapters. We've got 10 left, just 10 left to go. So, here we go. Chapter 61. The Passage Beyond Maps and the Flame That Floats. The scroll from Halifax was not a destination. It was a guide. Drawn in charcoal and sea salt ink, the map depicted the Northwest Passage, but not as a shipping route. It marked settlements long forgotten, coded locations along the shorelines, and riders' initials, lighthouses. This wasn't about land. As they traced it, it was about keeping the line alive where maps fail. Lewis stood beside Lady Elizabeth, the scroll spread between them on the table of their rented schooner. This passage wasn't just physical, it was symbolic, a corridor of continuity when all else was frozen. They docked briefly in Iqaluit, welcomed by the Nunavut Historical Society and a small team of elders who had preserved oral accounts of a night rider, a woman whose mare left prints on snow that never melted. She rode without sound, said Elder Kunik. She carried fire in her cloak and names in her memory. We called her Aksarnit Kujauak, the Aurora Messenger. Colette and Leon compared the local legend with the drawing from Halifax. It's her, Clara whispered. Miriam didn't vanish. She became a legend in motion. From the elders, they received a pouch containing a shard of quartz engraved with the twin horse seal and a starburst. It's a memory stone, said Tabitha, used to record stories before ink. You press it into heat, then snow. It marks the truth in the land. They set sail again, following the icy arcs into the archipelago. Thunder stood firm on deck, nose pointed north. Wellington slept beneath a wool blanket, purring softly. On the third day, they reached the place marked with an X. Not a location, but a story pause. Lewis, Frank, and Sebastian hiked inland, guided by Inuit youth from the nearby. There they found it. A cairn built from driftwood and stones. shaped like a rider on a rearing mare. Inside, a flame burned. "It shouldn't still be lit," Amelia murmured. "And yet it is," Edwina said. "Some stories burn without oxygen." They pressed the quartz memory stone into the base. The flame flickered blue. Then from the far ridge came the sound of hooves. Light. Impossible. Everyone turned. There was no one there. Only the tracks, and the stars above them danced. Lady Elizabeth stepped beside Louis, hand brushing his. "We followed her to the edge of the known world." "And now," he said, "we carry it back." They returned to the schooner in silence. Wellington pawed the memory stone. Thunder stared at the horizon, because the truth didn't end in the cold. It glowed and floated, waiting for the next rider to bring it home. Chapter 62. Return to Maplewood and the Song of the Mare. They returned to Maplewood in autumn. The trees had turned the color of parchment and fire. Thunder whinnied from the pasture as they rode up the familiar hill. Even the air had changed, quieter now, as though waiting for the story's echo. Potts opened the manor door with an uncharacteristic smile and a folded note. "You had visitors," he said. "A few horses. A woman asking about violets." Inside, the manor felt charged. The cousins had returned as well, sprawled across library chairs and stair banisters with the ease of belonging. Amelia tossed them a telegram. Witness line appears in French-Canadian school texts, page 104. Traded. "We're official now," she added, "which means we're dangerous again." Lady Elizabeth and Louis walked the halls together, passing portraits that once watched in silence. Now they seemed to nod. In the blue parlor, the scroll from the Northwest Passage had been framed. Thunder stood in the orchard beside the small headstone of Lady Violet. And just behind the manor, near the ring of birches, something new had appeared. Hoofprints. Not Thunder's. Not recent. "She's been here," Edwina whispered. "The black mare." They followed the prints to the paddock. There, beside the old apple tree, stood a young girl in a blue riding cloak too large for her. "She says her name is Rose," Clara called. "She doesn't speak much, but she sings." Lady Elizabeth knelt before the girl. "Where did you come from?" The child pointed to the woods, then to the stars. Tabitha approached with the quartz memory stone. Rose touched it. A soft vibration rippled through the orchard. Then she sang, a melody none of them recognized, yet every one of them knew. "It's the rider's lament," Louis whispered, "but older, purer." Wellington sat beside the girl, curling gently. Frank cleared his throat. "We need a new ledger, and probably a bigger barn." Colette pulled out a fresh journal. Clara handed Rose a pencil. Lady Elizabeth stood beside Louis, watching the girl scribble stars and hooves and spirals. "She's not a replacement," she said. "She's a continuation." He nodded. "Like all of us." That evening, a great table was laid in the garden. Fireflies danced above cider cups. Old scrolls lay beside dessert plates. And as the new moon rose, someone began to sing. The girl joined, then Clara, then Sebastian. Soon the whole table hummed the ancient tune. And in the distant tree line, the black mare raised her head. She was not alone. She never had been. And now, neither were they. Chapter 63. The Harvest Ride and the Unnamed Ledger. Harvest season blanketed Maplewood in the scent of roses, rain-damp soil, and old promises. Lady Elizabeth rose early with Rose, the girl who had sung the stars into memory. They rode quietly past the dew-soaked fences while the rest of the household stirred with tea and questions. Louis watched from the veranda. Not jealous, just reverent. "She's part of it now," he said to Edwina. "She always was," Edwina replied. "She just hadn't arrived yet." The cousins stayed on, using the manor as their central post. Graham fixed the weather vane. Amelia drafted legal briefs advocating for provincial acknowledgement of the restored land scrolls. Clara transcribed Violet's diary into 3 languages. Frank took over the barn, training the youngest horses and muttering about future riders needing saddles that didn't squeak. One afternoon, Leon and Colette returned from town with an antique trunk. "It was in the back of an old Catholic school," Leon said. "Labeled Doctrine Ledger. But the weight? Wrong for scripture." Inside, an unsigned journal, a pressed feather, and a hand-drawn map shaped not by borders, but by winds. "Another ledger," he said, his eyes wide. "But no one ever entered into Brotherhood files. This one belongs to no one." Rose sat beside the trunk, her hand resting gently on it. "It's waiting," she whispered, "to be named." That evening, they gathered in the orchard for the annual harvest ride. Riders from the community joined. Children, elders, a mounted Metis family, and even a few officers from the provincial constabulary who'd once questioned Maplewood's sanity. Thunder led the parade. The sky turned amber. Rose rode on a pony named Bramble. Wellington seated confidently in the saddlebag. As they circled the grounds, Lady Elizabeth addressed the gathered riders. "This ledger has no name," she said, lifting the book high, "because it does not belong to a past. It belongs to the riders ahead, the ones still forming, still listening." She opened to the first page and handed the pencil to Rose. The girl drew a circle. Around it, 2 horses. Then she wrote, "We begin again." The crowd bowed their heads. Some wept. Others raised their reins. And somewhere near the stable, just beyond where the trees swallowed light, the black mare stood. She nodded. She turned. And she galloped into the dark. Not to flee, but to make room for the riders now ready to follow. Chapter 64. Whispers in the Walls, and Winter's First Breath. Snow arrived early. A streak fell during breakfast. By dusk the manor was dusted in white, like a letter sealed with frost. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like something being tucked in carefully, page by page. Frank lit a fire in every hearth. Clara reorganized the library again, this time alphabetically by continent. Tabitha found a footprint on the roof with no marks leading up. "We're being," she said lightly. "Good," Edwina replied. "Means the story still breathes." Lady Elizabeth stood in the blue parlor window, watching thunder stamp the snow with practiced patience. Rose sat nearby with a sketchbook. She'd taken to drawing what she heard. Hoofbeats, songs, sometimes only silence. A soft knock echoed from the manor's unused east wing. Louis, Edwina, and Colette opened the heavy door. Inside, an old nursery filled with dust, forgotten toys, and a faded chalk mural of a horse rearing into a night sky. Above it, in faint script, "Truth doesn't fade. It whispers." Amelia unearthed a drawer beneath the nursery crib. Inside, a letter addressed to the one who rides after. "I have hidden what I could not say. I've carved it in ink, hidden it in stone, sung it in wind. If you read this, you found me. My name is... The letter ended there, torn. But behind it, taped to the wood, was a sliver of birch bark engraved with initials. R.F. Rose touched it. Her expression didn't change. She simply said, "That's mine." Lewis stepped back. Lady Elizabeth reached for the bark. "We'll add it to the ledger." They returned to the firelight. Thunder dozed in the stable, flanked by two younger horses. One bore a white stripe like a question mark. Wellington snored from the mantel. Sebastian reviewed coded field reports from Quebec. Graham sorted saddle straps. Leon studied the rising patterns of new youth riders from coast to coast. Tabitha added a log entry. Maplewood now contains 93 known references to the mare, 64 to Violet, 1 to an unknown rider known only as Rose. That night, Rose dreamt. She woke before dawn, climbed to the attic, and placed the birch bark inside the unnamed ledger. Then she wrote, "I heard her again. She says the next song is buried in snow, and we must ride before it melts." Lady Elizabeth and Lewis read it together. "Spring comes quickly in the story," she said. "Then we'll be ready," he replied. Outside, the mare's prince appeared briefly across the lawn, then disappeared. But not because she was gone. Quipped archivists. Even a pair of elderly Newfoundland cousins who claimed they once saw a black mare vanish into sea mist. Lady Elizabeth rode each morning with Rose, not to train her, but to ride beside her. Rose spoke little, but wrote often. Lewis repaired a trailhead marker 3 miles west of the orchard. "The line was never broken," he said, "just unmarked." One morning, as the crocus pushed through frost, a package arrived. No sender, wrapped in oilskin, contained within a brass compass, frozen on true north, single black horsehair, and a note. "She waits near Dawson." The final witness rode alone. Amelia cross-referenced old court transcripts. There was a Yukon case in 1899. Cited an unnamed woman who delivered a land dispute document across impossible terrain. Dismissed as myth, but the descriptions match everything we've learned. Clara pinned a new map. Tabitha opened a new ledger. Frank packed oats. The cousins gathered around the hearth. "We're not just researchers now," Graham said. "We're writers." "We always were," Colette replied. That night, the orchard bloomed early. Rose placed a feather in the unnamed ledger. Then she spoke her longest sentence yet. "The next story sleeps in snow and cold. Must wake her." Lewis smiled. "Then we go north." Lady Elizabeth raised a glass of warmed cider. "To the riders still waiting." Thunder neighed softly, already facing the horizon. Wellington climbed into the saddlebag with the air of a cat who had already seen the next chapter. The team prepared, and as the thaw spread through fields, forests, and memory, the last trail whispered its name into the wind, and the riders answered. Together. Again. All right, guys, are you ready to start into the final segment? I believe these are the last 5 chapters. So, here we go, jumping right on in. Chapter 66. Dawson's Echo and the Map That Sings. By the time they reached Dawson City, the air smelled of river thaw and old fortune. Lewis, Lady Elizabeth, Rose, Edwina, and the cousins arrived on horseback. their caravan drawing stares from locals and the odd photo from curious tourists. They stabled Thunder beside a robust named Whiskey Jack and rented rooms in a former post office that now doubled as a coffee house and antique store. The letter had said, "She waits near Dawson," but finding the exact trail required more than maps. Rose wandered the old wooden boardwalks with her sketchbook, pausing outside a former courthouse. She pressed her palm to the door. "There's something behind this wall," she whispered. The caretaker, a pipe-chewing man named Ollie, grinned. "You're the third child to say that in 30 years. One girl even getting it open." That evening, they investigated. In the attic of the building, hidden behind a false partition, lay a music box carved with a horse motif. It played a tune identical to the melody Rose had sung. Inside the box, a folded parchment, perfectly preserved. Amelia read aloud. "To the writer who finds this, I did not ride for gold. I rode for names they would not, but we found many." Rose placed her hand on the book. Then she sang the final line of the lullaby. "The mare remembers, the map will hum, the truth will ride where songs come from." No one spoke for a moment. Then Lady Elizabeth smiled. "The witness line isn't a path, it's a chorus." And the mountains answered, softly, like a rider just beyond the bend. Chapter 67. Songs in Stone and the Naming of the Line. Spring clung to the edges of Dawson like a secret, unfolding in brief thaws and blooming riverbanks. The witnesses remained a few days longer, tending to Eliza Hart's stone circle and setting up an archive tent under the northern sun. Rose spent hours among the carved stones, sketching new symbols, some that matched old witness seals, others no one recognized yet. "She is recording future entries," Sebastian murmured. "Not history, possibility." Lady Elizabeth and Louis reviewed Eliza's journal, careful with its aging spine. Inside were names thought lost. Matisse guides, women listed only as midwives in census documents. One writer known simply as Auntie Fire. Clara and Amelia worked on a digital transcription. "This ledger fills the gaps no law ever filed," Amelia said. "It's reparative, restorative." Colette and Leon built wooden benches around the stone circle, leaving space for ceremonies and quiet reflection. On the third morning, Elder Agnes Whitefeather arrived by seaplane. She stood there before the stones, touching one that bore a double spiral. "This was my great-aunt's mark," she said softly. "You brought her back into the song." Edwina bowed. "We didn't resurrect her. We just listened." That evening a naming ceremony was held. Rose stepped forward with the quartz memory stone, now engraved with a new spiral. She handed it to Lady Elizabeth. "This line isn't just for writers," she said. "It's for rememberers, singers, mapmakers, midwives." Louis added, "Anyone who carried truth, even when no one wanted it." Tabitha unfolded a banner, hand-stitched symbols circling a twin-horse seal, one black, one silver. Beneath it, new text in multiple languages. The remembering line, witnesses of word, hoof, and flame. Wellington circled the banner twice, then curled up on the nearest bench. The group held silence for those named, then for those never named. As the sun dipped below the ridge, the wind stirred the birch trees. Thunder lifted his head. Far across the river, the silhouette of a mare appeared. No rider, no reins, just watching. Still, Lewis whispered, "We've been seen." Lady Elizabeth nodded. "And we saw back." The remembering line was no longer whispered. It was sung. It was named. And it would never be silenced again. Chapter 68. The Letter in the Lantern and the Trail that Waited. Before leaving Dawson, the group gathered one last time at the riverbank. The morning was calm, the water flat as polished stone. The cairn stood solid in the distance, and the stone circle behind them echoed with memory. Edwina lit a lantern and handed it to Rose. "We'll let it float," she said, "with a letter inside, so the next rider knows where to begin." Lewis folded the letter on thick parchment. "To the one who finds this, you are not starting a story. You are joining it. The witness line belongs to no single name and no single nation. It lives wherever truth walks, rides, or sings. Welcome. Take the next step." Lady Elizabeth sealed the lantern with beeswax. They watched as it bobbed once, then glided gently into the current, heading downriver toward stories yet unread. Later that day, they split up briefly to prepare for the next phase. Sebastian and Clara traveled to Winnipeg to establish a multilingual digital archive with a Prairie Youth Coding Collective. Amelia and Graham flew east to consult with law professors at McGill and Dalhousie about land transfer reparations. Colette and Leon returned to Montreal, coordinating school programming that would integrate the Ledger stories into local history. Edwina remained with Lady Elizabeth, Lewis, and Rose, preparing to return to Maplewood with the scrolls, Memory Stone, and the twin banners. Frank left last. "Heading north," he said. "Heard rumors of another cairn past Tuktoyaktuk, and I've always wanted to outstubborn a polar bear." That night, Lady Elizabeth walked the river's edge. Lewis joined her quietly. "You never asked where I went," he said. She smiled. "You needed space. I needed to trust you'd return." He took her hand. "I didn't return. I chose to ride beside you again. That's different." Rose approached, a lantern in her arms. "I made one more," she said. "It's for the next rider, too. But this one stays at Maplewood." They held the lantern between them. "Let it burn until someone adds to it," she said. Wellington curled beside the fire. Thunder pawed once at the earth. The lantern glowed, and above them, as the stars emerged like seeds of memory, the trail shimmered, not forward, not backward, but waiting. Always waiting for the next name, the next rider, the next truth, and they would be ready. Chapter 69. Maplewood reopens and the Watchers arrive. By the time they returned to Maplewood, the manor had changed again, not in walls or windows, but in purpose. The blue parlor now housed a circular table with 12 chairs, each carved with a symbol from the ledgers: a hoof, a feather, a spiral, a flame. Frank's saddle rested on a hook in the foyer. Wellington had claimed a sunlit windowsill as his new kingdom. The unnamed ledger sat in a glass case, beside a blank volume labeled Next. Lewis, Edwina, and Lady Elizabeth prepared for the guests set to arrive that weekend, the first formal gathering of global witness delegates. They called it the Watchers Summit. Invitations had gone out across Canada, Britain, Spain, France, and the United States. Indigenous leaders, archivists, writing historians, poets, legal scholars, and one retired postal worker from Newfoundland who claimed his father once delivered a note for Violet on horseback. Clara arrived first, with Sebastian and a busload of coding students. Colette and Leon came next, bringing digitized scrolls and fresh cheese curds. Amelia and Graham returned with educational grant offers and a bag of embroidered patches. Each guest brought a story. Each story fit a missing piece. Rose watched from the library steps, sketchbook in her lap, sketching faces as they came and went. She'd taken to calling the arrivals the watchers who stayed awake. During the first night's gathering, Lady Elizabeth stood at the center of the round table. "This is not a summit to declare history," she said. "It is a place to make sure it does not fall asleep again." Lewis spoke next. "Witnessing is not passive. It is responsibility. Memory requires care and courage." Elder Agnes stood with them. "You do not need to be born into the story to belong to it. You only need to listen when truth knocks." A small ceremony followed. They placed a fresh violet at Lady Violetta's headstone. Rose added a page from her notebook. It showed a long, winding road, horses in every season, and one rider looking back to wave. Edwina whispered, "That's all we ever were, riders who waved back." The next morning, they began drafting the Charter of the Remembering Line, an evolving document to be co-authored by descendants, guardians, and future riders. Wellington paced the parchment like a feline scribe. Thunder watched from the paddock, regal. And in the east-facing mirror of the manor, the reflection of the black mare flickered, just once, as if to say, "You're ready now." And so they were. Chapter 70. A Royal Request and the Road Yet Ridden. The summit closed with quiet strength. The charter was signed, digitally, ceremonially, and, in a final gesture, pressed into the bark of the oldest tree at Maplewood. Rose placed her hand on the trunk. "Now it remembers too." That night, Lewis found Lady Elizabeth alone in the west garden, pruning the last of the summer roses. The moon shone on her shoulder, and she hummed, something old, something from the scrolls. He joined her. "They'll want to see this in Britain," he said. She nodded. "I received a letter this morning." She handed it to him. The crest on the seal was unmistakable. From the office of the Prince of Wales. "My dear Elizabeth, news of the Watchers' Summit has travelled far and wide, and not just through official channels. I read the charter, I read the names, and I recognize more than one echo of your voice in the words. Britain would be honored to host the next phase of your work, a public exhibit at Kensington, a panel at Oxford, even a quiet ride on the grounds of Windsor, if thunder still permits foreign soil. I have not forgotten the story we almost shared, nor will I intrude upon the one you live now. But should you and Lewis ever find yourselves ready to ride this side of the sea again, know that the gate stands open. In memory and hope, Arthur." Lewis finished reading and returned the page without a word. "He means it," Elizabeth said. "I know," he replied, "and I would go, not for him, but for the story." She smiled. "So would I." In the days that followed, they began gathering the traveling archive. Scrolls, stones, Rose's sketches, and a set of replica witness cloaks stitched by Clara. Wellington inspected every trunk. Thunder tested new tack with princely disdain. "London, then?" Tabitha asked. "And perhaps a detour through the Yorkshire moors," Edwina added. "One rider was rumoured to have vanished in the heather." On the eve of departure, Rose handed Lady Elizabeth the folded paper. "You'll need a new map," she said. Inside was a drawing of England. Not roads, but memories. Dots where hooves once fell. Lines where songs had been sung. At the top, truth travels. So must we. They boarded the ship beneath a sky streaked with dawn. And as Maplewood faded into the horizon, the wind carried the echo of hooves. Not an ending, just another crossing, toward the next name, the next trail, the next page. Still blank, still waiting. The end of Murder at Maplewood Manor. Author Anna Rowe. Narrated by Tim Maloney. All right, guys, we have reached the end of Maplewood Manor. I hope you guys enjoyed. And just as a reminder, we will be starting in on the next book on Tuesday. And the next book is The Edge of Control by Cody Alaniz. So I hope you guys are prepared to come along for that and have some fun and enjoy your time with the next story. After that, we have another story that I have already gotten secured down and that we will be ready to go with. The next story is, and why is it not showing in my things? I don't understand. For some reason, the next book has completely disappeared from my files here. I don't know why. So, once again, after The Edge of Control, we will move into R, the Mystery Man by Amira Kalfi. That one might just be a single reading session. We'll have to see how it goes. Looks like it has a couple less pages than some of the other ones. Total of 118 pages, it looks like. So we will see. We'll see how it all goes. Other than that, thank you all so much for being here with me tonight. I hope you have enjoyed the reading of Murder at Maplewood Manor, and I hope you will be here for our next meeting. Why are you not there? I don't understand. But hopefully you guys will be here for the next meeting on Tuesday. Until then, if you did miss any part of the reading today because of my horrible internet issues, I will be uploading the recordings to my YouTube channel, and you can always catch them there. Until then, I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys all again really soon.